Good day. Today I'm going to talk about I Origins, directed by Mike Khalil, played by the main characters, uh, Michael Pitt as Ian Gray, and Astrid Burgess Frisbee as Sophie, and Brit Marling as Karen. So let's talk about the summary of the movie first. So in the movie, there was a young scientist in his lab colleague who set out to disprove the origins of humans by investigating the eyes. So as they were mapping their baby's eyes, it shows another person's identity, which is named Paul Edgar. So a doctor suggests that their baby has autism indicators and should be examined. So when Ian's son is shown a sequence of photograph, the infant is seen responding to persons and things associated with Paul Edgar. So since the baby appears to react more favorably to persons and objects associated with Paul Edgar, they visit the person whose eyes, which is, the person who's named Paul Edgar, whose eyes match their son's. As they dive deeper into the mystery, they begin to uncover evidence that calls into questions the widely belief that everyone's eyes are unique. As they scan eyes, they come across a match for the father's ex-girlfriend, a young girl born shortly after his girlfriend died and living in India. He start looking for that little girl and he finds her. He gave his own photographic exam, then the girl's results are consistent with random choosing. But when they leave and approach the elevator, the small girl breaks down in tears and refuses to enter. As he understands the cause of her panic, his findings are called into question once again, as he recalls his ex-girlfriend, the match for this young girl's eyes, dying in an elevator accident. So those are some of the major events that had happened in the movie. Now let's proceed to the analysis. So there are some of the concepts that philosophical concept that I have encountered in the movie. We call this the divine intervention. So the divine intervention happened when Ayan met Sophie twice. At first, he met her in a Halloween party, loses her, and meet again by chance or destiny on Brooklyn elevated subway. Some others in these circumstances may suggest that divine intervention had a role in their meeting. But Ayan would never say that. He is so determined to show that God does not exist. Ayan's determination on his investigation that God does not exist somehow reminded me of Hume's careful analysis of miracles, where Hume concluded that no testimony is sufficient to establish a miracle. Hume's argument is somehow related to Ayan's view of God's existence, while Hume concludes that there is no scientific evidence to prove God's existence. Ayan was so determined collecting evidence to prove that God does not exist. There was also a scene where it reminded me of Hume's viewpoint on miracle. It was a scene where Karen said, "If I drop this phone a million times, and one time it doesn't fall, it hovers in the air, that is an error that worth looking at." When Karen said this, it reminded me of the law of nature that Hume is taking about, which clarifies our proper way of understanding miracles. So Hume's argument about miracles is related to Karen's example of phone that hovers in the air one time. She explained that this is just an error, and Hume would see that a phone that hovers in the air one time with his knowledge of gravity as a law of nature is a violation, which they call as miracle. Now, Dr. Ian Gray's obsession on investigating the development of the eye to disapprove to the popular spiritual belief that eyes were created directly by the Supreme Maker depicts an atheist person. According to a book written by William L. Rowe, an atheist is anyone who believes that the theistic God does not exist. On the other hand, Sophie's strong belief in the existence of God depicts a theist person, since she is someone who believes in the existence of divine being. Aya's and Sophie's opposite viewpoints somehow reminded me of Berger's explanation of religious experience as not universally not universally and equally distributed among human beings. But there are two ways to communicate our religious experience. As stated by Berger, religious experience are communicated either orally or through text, but it is best communicated through human symbols. Um, which reminded me of how Sophie communicated her religious experience to Ian. There was also a scene that reminded me of Anselm's points on the existence of divine being. It is a scene where Sophie explained God's existence using the worm Ian discovered. She said that the worm cannot see. It does not recognize the light. Their notion of light is unimaginable, but humans know that light exists. The worms can only see the light with a little mutation. She said some humans have mutated to have another sense, which is the spirit sense, which they can see the world on top of them. According to Sophie, humans may lack a feeling of this spiritual world because we are limited to our five senses. Well, Sophie's argument reminded me of Anselm's explanation that there are two ways in which something can exist. Right? Something can exist in our imaginations, or they can also exist in reality, just like the existence of the light. Just because a worm cannot see doesn't mean that there is no light. Just because humans cannot sense spirits does not mean that spirits don't exist. Additionally, there there were scenes where metaphysics collides with science. It is the scene when parents scan their baby, which is Ayan and Karen. When Ayan and Karen scan their child, and the algorithm suggests a name of Paul Edgar Dairy, the nurse dismisses it as a system fault and restarts the system, adding their baby's name as a new record. And when Ayan's son is shown a sequence of photographs, the infant is seen responding to persons and things associated with Paul Edgar. And the baby appears to react more favorably to person and objects associated with Paul Edgar. And as the doctor's conclusion, this is the baby is a reincarnation or the reborn of Paul Edgar. And that's it for my analysis of the movie I Regents. Thank you so much.